It's time again to recap the latest news from the solar PV industry, compiled by the American Solar Energy Society. I'm Jay Warmke with SolarPVTraining.com, and this is what's happening in the wonderful world of solar for the week of August 18th. Now, it's been 2 years since the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, known as the IRA, when that became law, and a recent report on the effect of on the industry as well as society in general has just been published by E2, an industry consulting firm. They found that the IRA has prompted 334 renewable energy projects, creating 110,000 new jobs. The E2 report suggests that for every dollar spent of public funds, it prompts an additional $3 of private investment. Now, another report by MIT finds that that number for private investment is actually about $5.50 for every dollar spent of public funds. Michigan is the state that has received the most from the IRA, followed by Georgia, then South Carolina, Texas, North Carolina, Ohio, and Tennessee. Traditionally, red districts have benefited most from the IRA, according to this report, with 60% of the public funds and 85% of the private investment going to congressional districts that are represented by a Republican in Congress. Perhaps this is the reason that while some GOP legislators are discussing trying to repeal the IRA, a group of 18 Republican congressmen have sent an open letter to House Speaker Mike Johnson, urging him to keep this act in place. Now, quoting from the letter, they stated, quote, "Prematurely repealing the energy tax credits, particularly those that were used to justify investments that already broke ground, would undermine private investments and stop development that is already ongoing. A full repeal would create a worst-case scenario where we would have spent billions of taxpayer dollars and received next to nothing in return." On Monday of last week, President Biden more than doubled the amount of solar cells that can be imported into the United States without having to pay a tariff. They've raised that limit from 5 gigawatts to 12.5 gigawatts. Now, the tariffs were put in place in 2018, and originally the limitation for imports without tariffs was set at 2.5 gigawatts. But previously, that number was exceeded pretty dramatically. So the limitation was raised to 5, and now it's been more than doubled again because 5 gigawatt threshold was actually met in June of this year. Now, Biden has justified this move, stating that domestic manufacture of solar modules have increased dramatically since the passage of the IRA, which has domestic production incentives in place. However, the solar cells, which are a necessary component for these modules, that growth has not kept pace. Currently, about 80% of the world's solar cells are produced in China. Now, roughly 78 gigawatts of new U.S. manufacturing capacity for solar panels have been announced to come online before 2027. This is a 7-fold increase over the pre-IRA manufacturing capacity here in the U.S. However, Clean Energy Associates, which is an industry consulting group, projects that really only about 40 gigawatts of this announced capacity will actually come online. And this is 7 gigawatts shy of what will need to be installed here in the U.S., or what is projected to be installed in 2027. The U.S. wind industry had a record month in April of this year, actually surpassing coal as the second leading generating fuel source for electricity on the grid, just behind natural gas. Now, installed wind capacity has grown from 2.4 gigawatts in 2000 to over 150 gigawatts in April of this year, while during the same time, coal generation, on the other hand, has fallen from 315 gigawatts to 177 gigawatts during that same time period. Renewable energy, which consisted of wind, solar, and hydro, surpassed coal as the second largest source for generating electricity in 2020. And this year, wind and solar alone without hydro are expected to exceed coal as a generation fuel source. And a lot of competition is coming into the energy storage market, making this fast-growing sector quite a bit more competitive. Now, in 2022, just 5 firms controlled 62% of the battery energy storage system marketplace, known as BESS, B-E-S-S. In 2023, this market share for those 5 firms has fallen from 62% to around 47%. Of the top 10 global manufacturers of these BESS systems, 6 are Chinese firms, and of course, China is the largest installer of these systems of any nation globally. Tesla overtook industry leader Sungrow to take over number 1 place here with a 15% market share. Chinese manufacturer Sungrow is now in 2nd place, just ahead of China's state-owned manufacturer CRCC. And U.S. manufacturer Fluence is in 4th place, followed by another Chinese manufacturer, the large powerhouse company Hyperstrong. And that is the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you in 2 weeks.